Hello, beautiful soul sister, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebekah Kiger. I'm a trauma-informed master mindset and money coach, as well as a financial expert of over 17 years. I have spent my entire adult life studying the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, and I plan on sharing all of the things with you on this journey together. This podcast is called the Soul Powered Podcast because it's my desire to share with you how to create a life that is powered by your soul, not by societal standards or what everyone else in your life tells you that you should be doing, but actually powered by your soul. The reason you'd want to do this is because I believe that this is the fastest way to unlock your portal to prosperity and become what I call the wildly wealthy woman. This is the portal that once you enter it, you gain access to the prosperity, abundance, wealth, time freedom, experiences, fulfillment that are your birthright. I don't believe that you came here to build someone else's dreams. I believe you came here to live your soul-powered life and live it to the fullest. And I plan on sharing with you exactly how to do that during our time together. So thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have so much fun together today. Let's dive in. Hello, my love, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm so excited that you are here. We are going to dive into some of the most juicy topics today, and I just can't wait. You guys, I bent another spoon with my mind over the last week. I just got back from James Wedmore's Business by Design, who's my mentor, and oh my God, I knew it was going to be transformative, but it was even more incredible than I imagined. And every single time, that's exactly how it is when I'm at these events. And I have just realized, like, you guys are going to keep meeting new levels of me. I'm like Rebekah, like 10.0 at this point, and I just can't wait to share all of the insights. And I know there's some juicy, juicy things in here for you as well. So if you're someone who has had bad things happen to you in your life and you don't exactly know why, this episode is for you. If you are someone who wants to understand the power of your mind, or you already understand the power of your mind and you want to go deeper on that topic and look at how we can literally bend reality, this is going to be an episode for you. You may have listened to my previous episode about the first time that I ever bent a spoon. This was last season. And I had Autumn, who's one of my incredible girls in my community. She's so wonderful. And I had her interview me just because it was one of those things where I needed to just get it all out. And I really felt like being interviewed on my own podcast would be a really good way to do that. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode, I don't remember the episode number, but I can link it in the show notes below. But I'm so excited. Let's dive in. Also, you may have noticed that last week there was no podcast episode that came out, and that's because I had a family emergency that came up, and really things were incredibly stressful leading up to this event. I left on Wednesday of last week. So I'll get into all of that and what happened. So let's just dive in. This may or may not be like a multi-series, a multi-part series here because there's so much juiciness. And like I said, buckle up if you've never heard of, okay, somebody bending a spoon with their mind before. What the heck is that? If you've never been to a life-changing event before, you're going to hear all about what it's like to be in James Wedmore's world, all of the takeaways that I've had, because I know there is a lesson in here for you as well. So let's dive in. Okay, so if you've had something bad happen to you before, bad, and I use that in quotations because I really feel like every single thing in our life is happening for us and not to us. And I know that that may seem very a simplified way of looking at things, but I just truly, truly believe that. So if you've ever had something in your life that has happened that you couldn't understand, it was like maybe something big occurred, or you thought your life was going down a certain direction and then something crazy happened. It was like a big twist and turn, and you realized later on down the path that that actually was for you. And maybe in the time you didn't understand that, and you were looking at maybe the negative parts of it and like, how is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? How could this occur? What the hell happened? Well, I've got a story for you in this. And for those of you who guys are dog lovers, pet lovers, I trust that you can handle this. I'm not even, I was going to say I'm going to give you a trigger warning, but I know that everybody's here that is here. You can handle it. And if not, you can always skip past this episode and that's fine too. But okay, so let's dive in. So I was getting ready last week for my Business by Design trip. And I was really excited to go shopping, Christmas shopping for my husband and my daughter. My husband was up at our cabin. My daughter was out with some friends, and I just went shopping by myself. It was so much fun. And I love Christmas shopping. So I was just enjoying myself, having such a good time. And then I was on my way home or getting ready to come on the way home. And I get a bunch of missed calls from my daughter. And then I got some messages of like pictures. And so I opened up the pictures and I saw one of my dogs was bleeding like profusely on one of our pillows, our couch pillows. And so I immediately call her and she's like, try to get home as fast as you can because one of our dogs attacked the other one almost to the point where, I mean, he was losing so much blood. So my girl dog Ellie attacked my boy dog Zeno, and she got him really, really, really bad. And so I'm flying home as fast as I possibly can. Now, mind you, they're both mixes, and Zeno is a pit lab mix, and he's probably about 50 pounds. And Ellie is a pit mastiff mix. We rescued both of them, and she's about 95 pounds. So she's almost twice the size of our boy dog. Now, when we adopted her, for context, she was living in a home with four other dogs. So there was absolutely no way for us to know that she was dog aggressive, and that didn't develop until about 2 years into us having her. So this was a really difficult thing because we didn't know what we were getting into, right? Like we just thought, okay, she's wonderful with our dog. She's living with four other dogs. She's going to be great. She's going to be fine. And so probably about 3 or so years ago, they had gotten into a fight when we weren't home and they both were hurt. Zeno, the boy dog who's smaller, he was more damaged than she was, but we kind of chalked it up to there were two deaths back to back in our family. So we had the death of Eric's grandmother, and then we had a dear friend of ours pass away from COVID. So it was like a lot of heightened emotions in the household. We were gone a lot. They had never had an issue before this. So we kind of chalked it up to, okay, well, maybe they were just feeling all of this energy and there was nothing to really worry about. We kept them separate and it was not an issue from the two of them ever since. So, well, until this event, right? So we kept them separate and we were fine with it. The dogs were incredible. So over time we started just okay, laying off the separation piece because they were so 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 good together always when we were around. Like I said, except for this one time when we kind of thought it was maybe an anomaly. And so Ellie, our girl dog, started to show some more aggression, other people's dogs, to where we realized that this was a problem and we worked on fixing it. So we were working with a trainer. We had been working with her ourselves, just giving her a lot of love and just, I mean, working on her trauma, right? It's something that I understand very deeply. And so we showed her as much possible love as possible, kept her away from other dogs, and we really felt like we had this under control until Saturday. We realized that we didn't. So we came home and it was like walking into a crime scene. It was absolutely devastating and very scary. And my daughter had only left because we still keep them separate most of the time. But my daughter had come home and she left for about 45 minutes and she left them out together. So it wasn't like she knew she was just running out and coming right back. She didn't think anything of it, and this is when it occurred. So, and again, this is not something that has happened in like 3 or 4 years between the two of them, and it only happened that one other time. So I immediately rushed my boy dog to the emergency vet. And it turns out that we're there for about 10 hours straight. All these other dogs were kind of coming in at the same time. This is a holiday weekend, so they're the only vet that is open. And all these other dogs, they were kind of bringing them in as priority cases over mine, which I thought, okay, well, this might be a good thing. I wasn't happy necessarily sitting in the car and, sitting in the vet for 10 hours straight, but I thought, well, maybe that means that he's not that bad and he's going to be fine and no big deal. So he'll get patched up and we'll be good to go. Well, they finally called me back at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. So I get there at 10 o'clock at night, 6:30 or 7 in the morning, I get a call back. And I'm thinking, okay, they're just ready to see him. Well, the only reason that they called me back is because so had a seizure. And so they were really needing to update me on his condition. Meanwhile, the whole time they told me he was fine. So not the best experience with this vet in general, but they finally called me back when he had the seizure. So he is now I'm starting to panic because this whole time I thought, okay, we're just going to clean up his wounds. Now he's having a seizure. Now I don't know what's going on. And they're telling me they don't know if he has swelling in the brain. They don't know if he has a traumatic brain injury, and they don't know if they can sedate him to put him under long enough to clean his wounds and comfortably, get him stitched up and situated. So I naturally start to panic, and I could literally feel my body as the doctor's telling me what's going on, going into fight or flight. Like I could feel the energy beginning to emerge, and I'm very much so in tune with my body now. So it's something that is a very visceral response, and it's not a way that I live anymore. I used to live this way all the time, but I don't anymore. And so when that started to come up, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to use my tools. I felt like I was going to pass out. I'm like, this is my baby dog. And for context, he's my first dog. So we had a family dog when we were kids, but that was kind of more like my sister's dog. And this was my baby, right? He was the first dog that we had, and I had always wanted a boy and a girl child. But then I had my daughter, and I, for lots of different reasons that we can go into at another time, decided not to have another child. I was very sick when I was pregnant. I also wasn't in a relationship. I had quickly, after having her, gotten out of the relationship with her father. So I raised her pretty much by myself for 10 years straight. So by the time I met my husband, it was kind of like, okay, we would really be starting back over. So, anyways, there's a lot of reasons why I didn't decide to have another child, but my boy dog Zeno was like the boy that I always wanted. And so there's a very, very special connection with me and him. And of course, my other dog too, but she came a few years later. So, which is great. And she's another, she's a beautiful, beautiful dog with humans, an incredible, incredible, like she wouldn't hurt another human. I think she's actually afraid of humans because I believe that maybe she was abused beforehand. But this was my boy dog. And I started freaking out, right? Because I just have that very special connection with him. And also, there's this element to her being so much bigger than him. I felt like I should have been there to protect him. I immediately started going into like, this is all my fault. I should have never left, right? It was a whole thing. A lot of like blaming myself for this. So I go back and they say that they need to admit him to the hospital and that I can say goodbye, but they don't know like if he's gonna be okay, right? There's always a risk going under anesthesia that you're not gonna come out, even as a human, even as a healthy human. So they don't know what's going on with him, but they want to monitor him long enough, make sure his levels are good, make sure he's okay before they put him under and clean his wounds, stitch him up. And they were also concerned that there were to be blood in the lungs, that there's a puncture in the lungs. Like there's a lot of uncertainty at this point because they aren't able to analyze him the way that they would want to until they can kind of make sure that he's, like I said, sedated. So the whole thing was just an absolute mess. And I go back and I say goodbye to my dog, not knowing whether or not we're gonna have him after the fact. It was horrifying. It was probably one of the hardest moments that I've had in a long time. I have been through a lot in my life, don't get me wrong, but a lot of that real traumatizing stuff is decades ago, if not, probably a decade and a half ago or so. So it's just not something that I have experienced a lot of in recent years, put it that way. So I go to say goodbye, not knowing whether or not he's going to make it out okay, and I absolutely lose it. Now, mind you, I'm by myself through all this because Eric is away at our cabin. He is, with a bunch of his guy friends, his dad, my brother's up there with him. They're doing, their hunting thing. And I'm by myself through this whole thing, which in hindsight was meant to be because I was meant to show myself that I can handle this and that I can do this and still be okay. And I was. So I was very proud of myself for the way that I handled the whole thing. But at this point in time, I'm up for over 24 hours straight. I'm exhausted. There's a lot of energy happening, a lot of uncertainty happening. We went from this beautiful family with, my husband, my daughter, and me, and two incredible dogs to like potentially no dogs, right? Because I didn't know if my boy dog was going to survive, and I don't know what we're going to have to do with Ellie whenever we get home. There's all of this uncertainty because this is a pattern for her, right? So just an absolute train wreck at this point. So I go to leave and I call my husband up at our cabin, and they have a landline up there. There's no service, but they have a landline. And I am like hyperventilating. I am losing my shit on the way home. I'm just literally going into almost panic attack mode, which has not occurred in, like I said, probably almost a decade at this point. And I am losing my absolute shit. I'm thinking this is horrendous. And we get home and my husband, I was like, I have to sleep, right? I went home and went to sleep. And just, well, I mean, barely, right? Because it was very, very difficult. But I put on a meditation and I'm like, I need to try to get some sleep because, like, this is not going to be good. No matter what's happening and moving forward, my body with no sleep, no food, that's not going to help anything here. So I know that I have to take care of my physical body. So then my husband finally gets home and we're just in a waiting pattern. Like, we're waiting to hear from the doctor. They said, that it would be late morning, afternoon before they'd be able to know if he was okay to undergo sedation. So we're just waiting. We're just waiting. And then they called me to update me that nothing had happened yet. He hadn't had any more seizures. So they're still monitoring him, but nothing yet, nothing yet. It wasn't until about probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon or so that I get a call that they're ready to sedate him and they're ready to clean him up and make sure he's okay. And that they will call me back in about an hour or so, depending on how long the surgery was. So sure enough, I'm sitting there like just biting my fingernails, waiting for this phone call. And about 6:30 in the evening, finally we get the call that he's okay. He made it through and he's in the process of waking up. So one thing, biggest hurdles out of the way with this scenario. And again, the whole entire time I am just sitting here like I should not have left. This is all my fault. What was I thinking? Why did I leave them? Why did, just blaming myself completely. I didn't even think about the fact that I wasn't the one that left them like out of the bedrooms, right? Because I was never going to blame my daughter for this. Like, she just left really quickly and thought that they would be fine. And to be fair, they have been great together for the last couple of years. So not even a question in our minds that this would be an issue to just leave really quickly and then come back. Obviously, we have learned quite a bit at this point, and there's even some fear in me sharing this as how much backlash people want to give individuals nowadays for every little mistake. So I'm sharing this with the faith that you will see the lessons as I begin to share these lessons as well in all of this, and come with a place of love and not judgment, because this is me using my voice and sharing more of my vulnerability. And so the dog's okay, but it's a rough road for the next couple days. And this is 2 days before I'm supposed to leave for this event, which is like crazy to think because I was starting to think like maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe I should cancel. I don't know if my daughter and my husband are going to be able to keep them separate. Like, what are we supposed to do? And then I have people in my ear saying, like, you need to just give her up. You need to, put her down. I've got a lot of people giving unsolicited advice as to what I should do with my dogs. And it was just very difficult to try to make a decision and continue packing and getting all of my shit ready for, a week away from the home. So we decided my husband was going back up to our camp the following week. And so we just decided he can take her and then my daughter can stay here with the boy dog. And then we will come to the conclusion of what to do when we get home, which we still have not decided what we're going to do. But we do believe that at this point, Ellie does need to be in a home where she is the only dog. There's just been too many incidences where it's become an issue at this point. So at the very least, we're going to need to have her rehomed. But right now, they're still here, and we're doing everything to keep them completely separate. And so, yeah, there's no more. She's shown her what she's capable of, and there will be no more, risking that for my boy dog because he doesn't deserve it. He's the best boy in the whole world, and they're both incredible dogs, but he doesn't have a literal bad bone in his body or mean bone in his body. If there's a like one of my nieces or nephews is giving him a treat, it's one of those where he takes it and like very gently grabs the treat because he just knows and he's the sweetest boy in the whole world. And neither of them deserve this. And so it was very, very, very difficult. But if we fast forward to, I made the decision that I'm still going to go, especially because my husband was able to take her and we could keep them separate for the majority of the time that I was gone while we thought everything through. And so I leave on Wednesday morning for my trip to Phoenix. So we had our business conference Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think, or no, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sorry. And then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we were in Sedona. So we stayed a little bit longer. But the bending of the spoon. Okay, so we get to how does this all tie in, right? There's so many connections. And so if you're in this story with me, I have a lot of breakthroughs to share around this because the entire time I was sitting there thinking, God, universe, higher self, what is the lesson here? I don't ever want to go through anything like this again. Just what is the lesson so that I can take it away? Like, what do you want me to learn from this? Because this is so, so scary and difficult. And these are my family members. Hey, and if you don't have dogs or pets, I think it's difficult to understand because for me, I was not a big pet person before because I could barely take care of myself and my daughter. So it wasn't something where we had pets early on. It wasn't until I got married that we got a dog. But if you have pets, if you have dogs, if you have cats, if you have animals, you know that they become part of your family. It's not just, oh, this is a silly dog, just whatever. I mean, it becomes your family member. They're my emotional support dogs. They're fun. They're just incredible dogs. They both are incredible dogs with humans. And it's really, really, really difficult to understand why, certain things are happening. And especially at the hands of our other dog. Like it's one thing if this were someone else's dog or, he ran outside and God forbid got hit by a car or something but there was so much why, so many questions as to why did this happen? How could this happen? Why did we let this happen? Why did I leave the house, etc. So there was so much there. And it tied into BBD Live because this is a conference about business, but James Wedmore and Jenny, who's his girlfriend, Jenny Finley, we do a lot of spiritual stuff. Like they are down all of the spiritual rabbit holes. And it's so much more than just here's the next funnel that you need to be using in your business, or here's the next strategy that you need to be using. I mean, to give you an idea of how this event goes, I bent a spoon, guys, with my brain, with my energy. And so that's one of the exercises that Jenny has done for the last couple of years at BBD Live. She leads us through these incredible processes. So day one, get there. It's incredible. We start doing the meditation that she kind of sets us up. So we go back and we call back our power from events in the past that have occurred. And then we basically push that power forward to the next day when she doesn't tell you exactly what we're doing, but I knew because I was there last year that you push your power forward to a certain time in the morning the next day. And then that at that period of time is when we do the spoon bending exercise. So I already kind of knew what we were doing and I was calling back power as it related to the situation with my dogs because I'm like, I know there's something here for me. I don't know what it is, but I know that I have to do this around this because she's like, think of a time where you feel like you left your power, you left your, your life force in the past. So, and then basically from there, it kind of starts to unravel. So when you're in the meditation, you start with one thing, and I started with obviously the dogs, but then it starts to, your unconscious mind starts to lead you to other situations like that where you have left your power and then you start to get a theme as to what's actually going on and you can pull your power back from those things. So I started with the dogs and I started seeing myself blaming myself and just saying, how could you do this? How could you let this happen? This is all your fault. You shouldn't have left. You shouldn't have went shopping. You just should have stayed home with the dogs. And I saw myself like doing all of this shaming and all of this blaming. And then I went back to, okay, when else was I doing that? When else did I go and live my life and go and have fun and do something exciting? And then I blamed myself because something bad happened. And I started seeing all of these correlations between all of these different events when when I was younger, the first event that this happened is I jumped into my grandma's pool. I was probably 18 months or 2 years old, and I thought I could swim. I wanted to go and have fun, and I jumped into the pool. And I still to this day, when I'm doing power recall and timeline work, I can see myself looking up and I was drowning. I didn't know how to swim, and I was yelling, and my brother, my older brother, came out and he saved me and he, picked me out of the pool and he saved me. He's only like 2 years older than me, but he found me and he threw a raft in and got me out. So that showed me, okay, I went to go have fun, jumped into a pool, almost died. A couple years later, my brother and I, who we were so close, and we still are, I love him. I'm actually thinking about doing a podcast series with my siblings on here because I have 6 siblings and their stories are incredible. So you guys will have to let me know if you want to hear from my siblings. Just tag me on Instagram, let me know, because you're not going to believe the story about my brother unless you've listened to another one where I mentioned this. So next thing that happened is my brother and I, our next event that I see is about 4 years old or so, where I see my brother and I were on my grandma's bed, and it was like a water bed. You guys remember water beds? Um, those were a thing in the past. So we were jumping off the headboard of my grandma's bed onto her waterbed, pretending like we were like jumping into a pool. And at one point, I jumped directly into her ceiling fan and I sliced my eye open. So like you can't see it because I had like cosmetic surgery at like 5 or 4 where a literal plastic surgeon came in because it's on my face. And they tried to like make the incision as small as humanly possible, but I jumped and like it cut me from like here to here. I almost lost my eye, put it that way. So this eyebrow hair like doesn't even grow back the whole way. I had to get like microblading over it because like the hair grows in weird. So we were having fun and then I almost die, right? So you see like this theme of like I'm having fun, something bad happens. I'm having fun, something bad happens. Well, it leads me back to the biggest one where I left the most power was when my family, we went to visit some of our relatives who lived down south. And there was someone that they knew, it was like a church friend or something, that owned a 250-pound Bengal tiger. Okay. Now I'm imagining this is like a Tiger King type of situation. I don't know because I was the only one of my siblings and my family that didn't want to go. I wanted to go shopping with my aunt and my grandma. And so I remember, I'll never forget, like we bought like these purple shoes and I was having such a good time out shopping. My mom, my dad, and my older brother were the only ones who are allowed out of the car to go see this tiger. I have a picture of it. I have to find a way to like put this on social media or something so you guys can see. I have a picture of my brother and then the news article after because what happened is there was another girl about my brother's age. So I want to say John was probably 10, I think, at the time, which would have made me about 8. I was the only one who didn't go, but there was another girl who was about 10 years old or so who was there with them, with my brother. I have a picture of my brother like petting the tiger right before the insanity breaks out. But there was another girl and she starts like telling the tiger like sit, like and if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see me like she's like, no, like sit. And she's telling him to sit like you would tell a dog to sit and pointing at him. But she like hit his nose like once or twice. And I guess the tiger was like, yeah, fuck that. And just like went after her. But she moved her hand and it got my brother's knee. So this tiger, who is massive compared to my 10-year-old brother, is now gnawing on my brother's knee and not letting go. And it is incredibly intense for obviously everyone there. So all of the men come over and they're like punching the tiger, trying to get him off, and it's not working. Like the tiger's not letting go. He's locked in. And so my dad remembers that he has pepper mace in his jacket. So he pulls out the pepper mace and starts spraying the tiger in the face with the pepper mace. But now it's getting into my brother's wounds. And so my brother now has third-degree burns on top of 1,000 stitches, 500 on the inside and 500 on the outside. So naturally, this brings up the belief that in the doctors that my brother's never going to be able to walk again. He's never going to be able to walk again. He's not going to be able to overcome this. Like they didn't know if he was going to be okay after this. Well, he did go on to play like sports and semi-professional sports after that, and he's fine. He's, well, I will say physically fine, put it that way. There's no way you could be mentally fine after something like that happens. It's definitely still clearly a trigger for him. But the interesting part and where it all ties back to the story about the dogs and the bending of the spoon and all of this is that I realized that I was out having fun with my aunt, with my grandma, and my brother almost dies as a result. So even in the article, so when you come home, when we came home, we saw the news article, they said that that the boy's sister provoked the tiger. It was the other girl who was like telling him to sit, but the boy's little sister was provoking the tiger, and that's what made the tiger attack. So the fucking newspaper, that wasn't true, but I took that to mean it's all my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I should not have left. If I would have been there, I would have been able to save him. Now, what am I going to do as an 8-year-old? Like, obviously nothing. But it was very, very traumatizing for me. And then this was a theme that led on into my adolescence when my stepfather was abusing my child, my brother. When I would go out and go and hang out with my friends or go and do something fun, I would come home, and a lot of times there was just a tremendous amount of chaos in the house. Somebody was getting hurt, something bad was happening, and this whole story of I can't leave, I can't go have fun, I can't enjoy my life, otherwise something bad happens, reemerged. And so, of course, as it related to the situation with my dogs, that was the story. That was the story. I was having such a good time, and it would have happened that way because I believe on some soul level that, the dogs are were trying to teach me something. I believe that, and that they allowed this situation to occur in order to show me this, which makes me, brings up more sadness and insecurity with me because I'm like, you guys didn't have to do that. Like, if that's real, you didn't have to sacrifice yourself for me, but I believe in soul contracts, and I believe that there's a bigger reason behind all of this. But what I decided, so as I'm calling back all of my power from these events and pushing it forward to the next day, we finally get to the spoon bending meditation. And essentially what ends up happening is we push all this power forward. So we call it all back, we push it forward to this moment in time where we're going to be doing the spoon bending meditation and exercise. And you kind of get like a flood of power back. Like she says, Jenny always says, like, you have to make sure that you're putting it in this time zone because some people are from different time zones. And she's noticed in past events where she's done this that like people will wake up. If it's like 9 a.m., say that we're doing the meditation and we're pushing it forward to 9 a.m., that like people will wake up at like 9 a.m. like Australian time, which is definitely not Central Time. So they'll wake up in the middle of the night, right? So you have to be kind of really intentional about the way that you do this. But as I'm pulling all this power back, pushing it forward to 9 a.m., I made the decision as I was doing the spoon bending that I was just going to have fun with it because there's a lot of like fear that can come up. And some of the things that will stop you from bending a spoon is your ego. So essentially, okay, for those of you who are watching the video, I have the spoon with me. So this is my spoon from last year. And so it's stainless steel. You can see on the thing that it says like stainless steel. Okay, if you can't see that, then I mean, I'll take a picture of it. It's also on my Instagram from last year, but I'll make another post. So sometimes people won't be able to bend the spoon because they're in their ego. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's also a lesson. If you can't bend your spoon, that's a lesson. And it's not that it doesn't work. There's 1,000 people in the room. We're all bending spoons. Probably more than half of us are able to do it. And then some people can't. That's okay. There's a lesson in it regardless. But what I decided as I went in, I set the intention that I was just going to allow this to be fun because I knew I bent the spoon last year and I was like, okay, I kind of just bent it and I was like, I know I can do this. So how about I just go in completely unattached? And what if I allow myself just to have fun in this meditative process? What if I just let this be fun and take any kind of attachment to whether or not I bend the spoon or any kind of uncertainty or insecurities. But if I just like let all of that go and just go into this meditative experience, know that I'm going to get something from it and know that I can allow myself to have fun and allow it to be safe. And that anytime I start to get into my head or into my ego, I will come back to, are you allowing this to be fun? And if that even means that I just put the spoon down and don't worry about bending it, then that's fine too. Like, so I just went in with this level of detachment that was really, really powerful. And so we're doing it. And essentially, what you do is you kind of hold the spoon, and it's kind of hard to do now if you're watching the video. Like, it's a little hard to do now because the spoon's already bent. But, like, basically, what you do is you're in this meditative space, and then you start to sort of like pulsate with the spoon. So you're not doing this by force, you're just kind of imagining that you're putting all of your intention and focus on the fact that we're all energy, we are all made of the same thing, and that if you look at quantum physics and the way that that is all working, you realize that there actually is no spoon because there's no difference between the matter that's in me and then the matter that's in the spoon. So you kind of put all of your focus and attention on that, and then you sort of just pulsate like super, super gently, and then eventually the spoon begins to bend. And then you can kind of contort it any way that you want to. Last year, I sort of stopped, so I bent it and it just kind of is curved a bit. And I stopped myself last year from bending it any more than this because I was like, that's enough, it's okay. And this is how it looks. But this year, I made the decision that I'm just going to have fun with it. And if I bend this thing, then I'm going to bend the shit out of this thing because I'm going to like twist it around. I'm going to like loop it because I'm not going to stop myself this time. I'm going to show myself the power that I have. So we go into this meditation and I'm just completely present, completely in the moment, and I'm just enjoying this meditation. I'm having so much fun. And then okay, for those of you watching, I'm gonna have to show this to those of you who are listening as well. I'll link like a podcast, or I'm sorry, gosh, a social media post to show you. Okay, so I'll link it, so go on there and look. But I bent the living shit out of this spoon. I like twisted it around multiple times and just looped it. Okay, I looped it like twice and then continued to bend. And then eventually I was just like, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. And I just put the spoon down and stayed into the meditation. But what that showed me is that number one, everything in our life is connected. And so when these things happen and you look at your life like, what in the actual fuck is going on? Why did this happen? Why did this happen right before this event? Why did this occur? Why did this dog decide to do this? Or, what the fuck is actually going on, right? These things that kind of come out of nowhere and they feel really emotionally charged and really, really hard, that if you actually look and if you put yourself in the right types of containers and with the right people, that if you actually look at what the hell is here for you, there's something so magical in every fucking thing that happens in your life. And this is the work that I do with the women inside of the Aligned Money program. It's like we're constantly looking at, okay, how did the past, whatever happened in the past, what lessons can we take away from that? What do we want to bring into? We're about to go into a reflection month here in December, and it's like, what can we take into the new year that we don't want to, or that we want to take, and then what are we going to leave that we don't want to bring with us? Because there's so much for us. And I just truly believe that each and every event that occurs in our life is happening for us. I believe that these events are happening for you. And if you're in the right types of settings, that people are going to help you to see what that looks like, that's what allows you to unlock whatever that gift is. And so now I have this way different perspective about what business gets to look like, because my old belief systems allowed me to believe it's not safe to have fun. It's not safe to build a business that's fun. It's not safe to build wealth that's fun. It's not safe to have too much fun in my relationship. It's not safe to have too much fun with my daughter because something bad will happen. And so I want you to start to look at whatever's coming up for you, whatever memories flashing to your mind right now, or whatever thought, whatever pattern that you're seeing, that you might be like, oh, wow, this is linked to something deeper, and I need to explore this, because whatever pattern that is unwanted in your life right is there because there's a part of you that believes that it's serving you. See, my unconscious mind would not keep me in a pattern of not having fun in my life or not having too much fun in my life if it didn't think that it was serving me. That's why I make things way harder than they need to be sometimes. That's why I feel like things need to be way more complicated than they do, right? That's why in the past I have felt all of those things. And so it's really important to recognize that the patterns and the cycles and the things that are going on behind the scenes are there because there's a part of you that believes that they're protecting you. They're keeping you safe. They're keeping you in a position that is going to stop you from something bad happening. And until you recognize what those stories are and what that nervous system imprint is in your body, you will hold on to these patterns that don't work. They don't serve you. And if I continue to operate from, like, say I didn't go to this event because of what happened, I never would have received this gift. I never would have understood the connection and the correlation and why this actually happened. Does that make sense? So I really hope that this story provides a level of insight for you. Because realistically, this whole entire event was me stepping out of my comfort zone, and putting myself out there, doing the things. Guys, I was a part of a flash mob. James may eventually post us online, but I was a part of a flash mob. I learned this dance to the song I Got a Feeling That Tonight's Gonna Be a Good Night. Okay, I signed up for it in August at our next level of like trip. And I was like, wait, why did I do that? Because I was all excited when I first signed up. And then the closer that we got to it, I'm like, what am I doing? I do not want to do this. I'm scared. Like, I don't want to be dancing in front of like 1,000 people. But I just was like, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to do it. I'm going to see where I'm blocking myself. I'm going to put myself in a position where I know that it's safe and I know that I can do this. And I think the fun thing is too, just realizing that the places that you put yourself, the containers that you're in, like the women inside of the Aligned Money program, the whole concept behind this is creating a safe space for you to go and put yourself out there a bit where you can be seen and heard and fully witnessed without judgment, because that is what shows the nervous system that it's safe to do that. It's safe to go out and dance in front of people, right? Because I did it once. Or it's safe to put yourself out there. It's safe to talk about your dreams and your goals and your visions, because the people in this container are going to support you and they're going to help you and they're not going to judge you, and they're going to be there to encourage you and give you that beautiful little push that you need. And so that's exactly what I'm creating with my community as well, because I see the importance of it in what James has created for me. And I know that it's incredibly valuable to have that safety network and that support. It also led me to asking for support from James. And oh, it was so fun. 1,000 people are like vying for James's attention at this event, right? So this is his biggest event of the year. And I'm in next level. So I get a little, more access to James because I'm in his mastermind. But it's interesting because even in that group, I think there's a couple hundred people, right? So, and then he has his more intimate mastermind, which I want to say is like 30 businesses or something, but I'm kind of in his like mid tier. And we still don't get a ton of time with James, right? One to one, because he's a lot of coaches, a lot of people there supporting him and helping all of us. And so the last day of the event, I go in and I see that James is like surrounded by people, and I'm just not the type of person in the past who would push my way in and like I've seen James stay at these events till like 2 and 3 in the morning with people lined up to wait to talk to him. And I've just never been the one to want to do that. I'm like, man, he must be really tired. Like I'll catch him at the next one, or like I'll get on a hot seat call with him or whatever it is. And this time I was like, you know what? You're going to put yourself out there and you're going to ask for what you want, and you're going to be okay being seen, and you're going to be okay being heard. And so I did. I said, "All right, James." I stood in line to wait for him, and I waited until it was my turn. And we were actually getting kicked out of the room because like these hotel rooms have to close at a certain time. So about the time that I go to ask my question, I'm like, "Oh, okay, of course we're going to get kicked out. I'm not going to get support." But I just blurted it out and I was like, you know what, James? I normally would be the type of person to like let all of these other people get the support that they need and talk to you. But I said, I'm done taking a back seat to others. And because it just always results in me never getting the support that I need. And I said that and I was like, oh, who was that? Like who decided to say that? Right? Like, who am I? And he goes, you know what, Rebekah? I used to be the same way. So he goes, walk with me. And we ended up leaving that room and we went out to like the hallway area where there was basically two chairs. And he was like, come sit with me. And so we sat there. And then there was one other chair that was like kind of off to the side where my friend Sabrina sat. And I got like all of this personal time with James, which is nothing to be, it's not a small feat to get to sit with him. And it ended up being about 5 hours that we spent. Now, it wasn't all on me. We just kind of connected on a personal level. We were listening to his stories. He was telling us about working with his shaman and like all these incredible things. But it was the most intimate, like beautiful time to be able to share with him. And it led to a dinner with him in Sedona. There was about 10 of us or so. We connected with some others there. And so it was just because he lives in Sedona. So it was just really, really cool. Like I finally feel like it's like I asked for what I wanted and then I got so much more than I thought I was going to get. And I think it was just really the universe showing me like you get to ask for what you want. You get to show up and be seen. You get to show up and be heard. And it was so beautiful. So I just want to invite you to look at, where in your life are you maybe looking at things from a lens of this is happening to me versus this is happening for me. And there are things that are coming up that are here to show you where you are stuck. Not because it's here to be like, oh, hey, yeah, you're stuck, haha. Like, no, it's here to show you, hey, you're stuck here. There's something that is for you that is going to be the literal catalyst. Whatever this is that's happening right now is going to be the catalyst for you to get to the next level. It's not the opposite. It's not here to block you from the next level. It's actually here to be the catalyst. It's the very thing that's going to allow you to get to the next level. Whatever fear it is, maybe you have a fear of being seen, using your voice, being authentic, showing up as who you are. And I am right there with you if you do, right? Because I had to work through all of those things. And there's always layers and levels to it as well. I've been unraveling these things for quite some time. My fear of being seen started to unravel last year at BBD Live. And so I've worked through a ton of that. But, it's just interesting because we can look at life through these lens of like, why is this happening to me? I can't believe this is occurring. Or I'm not that type of person to go up and talk to someone. Or I'm not the type of person to do blah, 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 whatever it is. Right. But Wayne Dyer is quoted saying that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I can tell you that I've come home and I still don't know what we're going to do with our doggy. I still don't have all the answers yet, But I do know that I changed the way that I looked at that situation, and that situation has changed as a result. And I have learned that I can deal with it. I can work through the things. I can handle hard things. And my mind is so incredibly powerful, and so is yours. Your mind is so freaking powerful, and it's the very thing that allows for you to create the life that you want or create the life that you don't. And it starts with what we're focused on. It starts with our perspectives and perceptions of those things and of those challenges in our lives. It starts with the perspective and the way that you're seeing the challenges in your life, the way that you're viewing the challenges. If you're struggling with your finances right now, if you're struggling showing up fully in your business, if you're struggling with these things, it starts with the perception of why. What is your perception of that? I just want you to think of something that is going on in your life right now that you're not in love with, an area of your life that you are feeling stuck in, whether it's relationships, whether it's your business, whether it's social media, whether it's your family or your finances, whatever it is, look at that scenario and then ask yourself, what are you focused on right now? How are you viewing this scenario? Are you only looking at it for what is happening to me and why is this happening? Or are you open to what is this teaching me? What is this here for? It wouldn't be there for you if you didn't have a lesson to learn from it. So there's something here for you in this scenario. How can you start to digest what that is? Because the moment that you learn the lesson from it, that's when you get to graduate. That's when you get to move on. I believe life is like a video game. I'll never stop saying this because I've gotten a lot of downloads around how this works. But think about a video game. I remember like some of the video games I used to play whenever I was a kid, like Crash Bandicoot and Mario Kart. And I remember like the last, maybe not Mario Kart, but like the Mario Bros, like the whole like where you go and you get to these different levels, and always at the very end of the level, when you're about to beat that level and move on to the next, there's some sort of really challenging thing at the very end. It's like you got to beat this big monster, or like this guy that like he doesn't show up till the very end. And as soon as you beat that guy, sometimes you don't beat him right away, right? But as soon as you beat him, that's when you get to go to the next level. And I think life is the same. Sometimes it's always, it can be darkest before dawn. And they say that for a reason, because a lot of times our biggest challenges, our biggest breakdowns are right before our biggest breakthrough. And I just believe that wholeheartedly. And as a result of believing that, now I look at these challenges that come up that are so traumatic and so hard for me to deal with. And maybe, that doesn't fully resonate with you if you don't fully understand or have pets or whatever. Just look at the different challenges in your own life where you can see that right before that breakthrough, I had a breakdown. Something really big happened and I decided to keep going. And because I decided to keep going, everything shifted for me. And that's what I believe just occurred for me now in this. So I'm really excited to introduce this new version of me. I can't wait to dive deeper into this with a version of me who is asking more for what I want, who's using my voice even more, who's showing up and not being afraid of visibility and not being afraid to share these things, even though I know I'm putting myself out there for judgment. Being able to bend a spoon with my mind and just contort that thing like crazy, right? Knowing that I have the ability to really contort my life. Because if I can bend a physical spoon, which is physical matter, I can bend my reality. Everything is energy. And so I'm going to talk more about that and all the things that I've discovered. There were some incredible speakers at the event too. And I've already been diving down even more rabbit holes. And I have a lot to share with you guys about Sedona and what we did when we were there and just the vortex of Sedona. You guys, if you've never been to Sedona, Arizona, holy shit, you're in for a treat. It is insane. I honestly feel like it's years worth of therapy in like a couple days when I go there. And even James said, like, Sedona will chew you up and spit you out. Some people move there thinking that, like, oh, it's going to be so high vibe. And then, yeah, it's very confronting. There's a lot of stuff that comes up. And it's almost like the earth and the energy there, it just like doesn't allow for you to sit in your shit. Like it's just, here's all of the stuff that you need to work on and, work on it. So if you guys want to hear about Sedona, I will definitely share that in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here, though. Please, as always, take a screenshot of this episode and let me know your biggest breakthrough. Tag me on Instagram at Rise with Rebekah. I would love to hear how this resonated, specifically this one, because it was a lot harder for me to share this because I said, just it's a very intimate thing in my life. And I love my doggies with all my heart. And I know I'm opening myself up to, a lot of opinions as it relates to how I should have handled things or what I should have done in the past, but just know my heart. My husband and I always operate under this belief that as long as we know each other's heart and we know that the other one wasn't trying to do anything hurtful or wrong, that, just because maybe they did something that we wouldn't have done ourselves doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that they're not still leading with love, because they are. And I just ask the same, from you. And then also maybe take that into your own relationships as well. If you can show people, hey, I'm just leading with my heart. And maybe I am wrong. Maybe I did something wrong. I'm open to, constructive criticism, things like that. It kind of lessens the blow a little bit, right? Because this is hard. Having a podcast, putting your life out there, it's not always easy, right? It's really not. And I learned even this weekend and working with so many of these online entrepreneurs that this isn't a fear that necessarily just goes away, right? There's multiple six, multiple seven, multiple eight figure entrepreneurs who are still struggling with this. So please just know, like, you're not alone just because you struggle with things, just because you are maybe afraid to share all of you and be fully authentic and use your voice and use your, visibility for good. I think that we need to stick together. And that's part of the reason that I want to share this message on the podcast and just keep growing this message. And I'm going to be bringing you guys some incredible guest experts. I have some people lined up for 2025, and we're doing like 15-minute brainstorming sessions where we're kind of coming up with an angle for the episode. And it's been a while since I've had guests on here. And I am just like, oh my God, are you guys in for a treat with all of these incredible guests? And I think it's just really important to continuously be an example of what it looks like to be able to be fully vulnerable, to show up in your gifts, not be afraid to share the things that are on your heart, because at the end of the day, we are all freaking human and we're all going through this together. And, we need to be there for each other. We need to stick together because there's a lot of darkness in this world. And I believe that the more of us who are vibrating in the light, who are raising the collective consciousness together, the more that we're going to shine the light on that darkness, and we're going to change the course of history together. We're going to change the course of consciousness together. And I think that really starts by leading with love, sharing from our hearts, being authentic, being open, being truthful, and not being afraid to do that. And so I really want to be an example of that. And I just ask that you receive it with love, because you're going to show up one day and want to be received with love the same way. And, sometimes that means that you have to put yourself out there and be a bit vulnerable, but having someone on the other side of that receive you with love, it shows your nervous system that it is safe to do, and that people do want to hear your vulnerable stories and people do want to hear things from you. And you literally will begin to see the ripple effect in your own life as well, as you share, as you are authentic, and as you are open and vulnerable. So thank you again for being here. I love you all so much, and I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Bye. Soul Sister, thank you so much for tuning in to this entire episode today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do me a favor and leave a quick review? This allows me to reach more people, and if you found value, I know others in your life will too. Also, be sure to share this episode on social media along with your biggest takeaways so I know what resonates most with you and I can keep the good stuff coming. And if you're looking to dive into a deeper connection than this podcast will allow, consider checking out my Rise to Riches experience in the show notes below. I would love to hear how these messages have helped you take one step closer to living your soul-powered life and becoming the wildly wealthy woman. Sis, let's continue to rise together. I'll see you next time. Bye.